On the morning of February 5th, 2020, that's about 2 weeks ago, my yard got down to 25 degrees and the avocado trees didn't like it. This is a reed, and out of my mature trees, this one probably took it the worst. Let me show you this tree and some others just to compare the differences and look at some curious things that I've observed. One reason I think that the reed took it pretty badly is that it's carrying a pretty heavy crop. I don't know how well you can see this, but it's got a lot of fruit on the tree, and I suspect that that contributed to how hard it took the cold. Some of the fruit has already started dropping, and I expect some more to drop too. You can see on many of them that the stems are brown and they're starting to desiccate, and I expect to lose all of this fruit, but there are some fruit, there is some fruit that still has green stems, and so I'm sure I'll be left with at least a few. Here's a small Helen tree, and it got hit pretty bad too. Looks like this whole limb is going to ultimately die back at least a few inches. And I suspect the reason this little guy got hit pretty hard was that it's at the very bottom of the slope of our property, and that's always the coldest part of the yard. This is a Hass tree, and I want you to notice just the difference in damage between it and the reed. There's just a little bit of browning on some of the tips up high, and there's a little bit of mottling on a few of the younger leaves on the north side here, but most of the foliage looks pretty much untouched. And I think one of the reasons is it's just carrying a pretty light to moderate crop compared to that reed, which is just laden with fruit. My guess is that made a difference in how much this Hass could withstand the cold. Let's look at one more larger tree. This one is a Fuerte, and it came through nearly unscathed. It's got some mottling on a few of the leaves on the north side here, but a lot of the foliage looks pretty much perfect. I think one reason for that is that it's carrying zero fruit, or actually no, I'm sorry, it does have a little bit of fruit, but not much. And a second reason is probably due to variety. Fuerte is known to be a little more cold hardy than Hass and reed and some other varieties, so that's likely part of it. On the other hand, this thing is in a pretty cold spot. The cold air kind of gets stopped up by the wall of this garage, and it doesn't drain down the slope like it otherwise would, so I find that the air around this Fuerte is pretty cold. So I'm impressed that the tree took the cold as well as it did. And then let's look at a couple of small trees. Small trees are always the most vulnerable to cold. This is a baby Hass, and as you can see, it got pretty damaged. The top's pretty well burnt back, and the lower leaves are somewhat mottled. I protected this tree with an Agrabon 50 frost cloth, but it obviously wasn't enough. On the other hand, let me show you another tree that I didn't protect at all. This is also a baby Hass. I didn't do anything for this tree, no frost blanket or anything. The top definitely got burned back a little bit more, but this tree had younger leaves on the top, so I expected that. Down low, actually there wasn't much more mottling on the lower leaves compared to the protected tree. So I'm not so impressed with that Agribon 50 frost blanket in terms of protecting a baby avocado in 25 degrees. It didn't do much. It didn't do much more than doing nothing. Now this young tree is not a Hass, it's a Charwill. And I didn't put a frost blanket over it, but I did protect it with a beach umbrella. I just posted a beach umbrella over the top of it, and it came through almost perfectly. It's got no damage to any of the mature leaves. The only damage was some brand new baby leaves that got singed. That was really it. It's a different variety, but I protected some other trees with beach umbrellas and similar things. And compared to the frost blankets, the beach umbrellas and the overhead protection with something thicker and denser did better than the frost blankets. So I'm unimpressed with the protection ability of frost blankets. So here are a couple of other trees that I just put some kind of roof over the top of, like a board. This is a lamb, came through unscathed. And this is another young Charwill, came through unscathed. And then right next to them is a little gem that I put a frost blanket over instead of some kind of umbrella or the like. And look at this little guy. It was super healthy going into it, and it got a lot more damage. It'll survive, but it doesn't look good. Finally, one thing that became crystal clear through this little 25-degree night was that the health of a young tree and an older tree as well makes a huge difference in how damaged it will be. This tree right here is a Carmen. It just had some damage to the top, some of the new growth on the top. Not such a big deal. This here is a Nabal. It was a healthy tree going in to the cold night. Just a little damage to the outside, not such a big deal. And then look at this skeleton. That's an unhealthy gem. It was unhealthy going in. It had been attacked by a gopher and it lost some of its leaves in the late summer and fall. And oh man, it just got really decimated by that cold. Same temperatures, different health status going in, and made a big difference.